I've worked search and rescue for years, deep wilderness, hundreds of miles of thick forest, mountain ridges, frozen lakes. I've found people alive when they shouldn't have been. I've found people gone when they never should have disappeared. And I've seen things out there that I was told never to talk about. Tonight, I'm going to talk about them anyway, because if I don't tell someone, I think it's going to keep eating at me for the rest of my life. So settle in, get comfortable, and whatever you do, don't turn the lights off just yet. Children who vanished. Most missing persons calls make sense when you work them long enough. Somebody wandered off the path. Somebody twisted an ankle and sat down and waited. People get turned around in the dark, and they panic, and they stop moving, and we find them. That's most calls, but I've had cases where nothing added up, where we searched every inch of forest and found nothing, not a footprint, not a fiber, not a single sign that a person had ever been there at all. 2 of those cases have stayed with me longer than any others. The first one involved a little boy. He'd been out berry picking with his family, him and his sister, both young, wandering just a little ahead of their parents on a warm afternoon. His mum and dad lost sight of them for maybe 4 seconds. That's all, 4 seconds. When they turned back around, only the girl was there. We responded fast. We found the daughter almost immediately. She was calm, unnervingly calm for a kid who'd just lost her brother in the middle of the woods. We crouched down and asked her where he went. She said a man took him. We asked what kind of man. She thought about it. Then she said he was tall, covered in hair. Like a bear, she said, but with a weird face. She said he gave her some berries, told her to stay real quiet, said he wanted to play with her brother for a little while. The last thing she saw, her brother was riding up on that man's shoulders, and he was smiling. We searched that area for 3 weeks straight. Dogs, helicopters, volunteers from 3 counties. We never found a single trace of that little boy. Not a shoe, not a strand of hair, not a broken branch where something had pushed through. Nothing. I still think about him. I think about him more than I probably should. The second case, that one came later. Different family, different trail, different part of the park. A mother and her 3 young kids out for a simple afternoon picnic. The lake was only 2 miles in. The trail was wide and well marked. She never let them out of her sight, she said. Not once. She heard footsteps on the path behind her. She turned around for maybe 4 seconds to look. When she turned back, her 5-year-old son was gone. Her other 2 kids told her what happened. A big man with a scary face had stepped out of the trees, taken the boy by the hand, and walked him quietly into the woods. The kids didn't seem frightened when they said it. They seemed foggy, like they were having trouble holding on to what they'd just seen. We searched for that boy for weeks. The scent dogs found nothing. No clothing, no tracks, no broken branches or disturbed ground. It was as if the forest had simply swallowed him. And then, over a month later, a volunteer found him 15 miles from where he vanished, halfway up a rocky slope so steep and technical that experienced climbers struggled to get up it with full gear. His body was wedged into a small opening in the rock face, halfway up. He didn't have a scratch on him. His shoes were gone, but the soles of his feet were completely clean. No dirt, no cuts, no signs he'd walked anywhere at all. And here's the part I can't get out of my head. Based on everything we were told afterward, he hadn't been dead for more than a day or 2. He'd been missing for over a month, and he'd only been dead for 2 days. The coroner said exposure. He'd frozen, probably late at night, 2 days before we found him. Somewhere out in that wilderness, that little boy had been alive for a month, in conditions that should have ended him in days. I don't have an explanation for that. I don't think I ever will. There are calls that spook you in the moment and then fade, and then there are calls that take up permanent residence somewhere in the back of your mind. This next one never left. We'd gotten a report of a young woman separated from her hiking group somewhere deep in the backcountry. The dogs had picked up her scent, and we were moving fast, long past midnight, our flashlights cutting thin little paths through the dark. We found her curled up under a rotted log, no shoes, no pack, shaking so hard her teeth were clicking together, but she wasn't hurt, not that we could see. We got her up, got her moving, and started heading back toward base. That's when she started looking behind us, every few steps, looking back over her shoulder at the dark trail behind us. She kept asking why that big man with the black eyes was following us. We looked. We couldn't see anything. We told her it was shock, that her mind was playing tricks, that she'd been alone out there for hours in the cold, and that was enough to make anyone's brain go sideways. We kept walking, kept talking to her, tried to keep her focused on moving, but the closer we got to base, the more agitated she got. She started talking louder, telling him to leave her alone, that she wasn't going to go with him, that she wasn't going to give us to him. That last part, we didn't really know what to do with. And then we started hearing the noises, something like coughing, but rhythmic, deep and mechanical and wrong somehow, coming from all around us, not from one direction, not from any direction I could pin down, just everywhere, all at once. We kept moving. We were almost within sight of base when she stopped and grabbed my arm. Her hand was ice cold. Her eyes were open wider than I've ever seen a person's eyes go, and she looked at me like she needed me to understand something very important. She said, quietly, "He says to tell you to speed up. He doesn't like looking at the scar on your neck. I have a small scar at the base of my neck. It's mostly hidden under my collar. There is no way that woman could have seen it. I didn't say anything. I just moved us both faster, and right after she said it, I heard that coughing sound directly in my ear. I kept walking. I didn't run, but I wanted to." There's something else I need to tell you about, something that every officer in my unit knows about, and almost none of us will discuss. The first time I saw one, I was still a rookie. My trainer had taken me on a detour after a call, out to a low area about 8 miles from the main path, an area where we tend to find missing people. We'd been walking for about an hour when I noticed something through the trees. It had straight edges, clean, perfect right angles. Nature doesn't make straight lines. I pointed it out. She didn't say anything. She just hung back and let me walk toward it on my own. I got to about 20 feet away, and the hair on the back of my neck stood straight up. It was a staircase, just sitting there, in the middle of the forest, beige carpet on the steps, normal wooden sides, 10 steps tall, completely ordinary in every way, except that there was no house around it, no foundation, no walls, no structure of any kind, just the stairs, standing alone in the dirt like they'd always been there. My brain kept trying to process it and kept failing. It was like looking at a glitch, like a house had been loaded into the world, but only the stairs had rendered. My trainer came and stood next to me, completely casual. She'd clearly seen it before. I took a step toward it. She grabbed my arm, hard. "Don't," she said. Her voice was calm, but her grip wasn't. "Don't go near them. Don't touch them. Don't go up them. Just walk away." I started to ask why. The look on her face made me stop. We walked away. She never explained. The subject didn't come up again for the rest of my training, but she was right about one thing. I see them all the time now, on the long searches, 20, 30 miles out, deep in territory most people have never set foot in. Different sizes, different styles. Some look brand new. Some look ancient, warped by decades of rain and freeze. Some are carpeted. Some are wood. Some are concrete. Some spiral. Some go straight up. One looked like it came out of a lighthouse. The biggest one I ever found was probably 10 feet wide, with steps climbing at least 20 feet into the air. Different staircases, different places. I've never been able to find the same one twice, and I was told, in no uncertain terms, never to go up them. One of my colleagues broke that rule, just once. He was on a search, lagging behind the main group, when he spotted a set with clean white carpet, pristine, no debris of any kind on the steps. He climbed. He said the view from the top was just trees, nothing unusual. But the longer he stood up there, the worse the feeling got, like he was somewhere he had absolutely no business being, like someone was about to come for him. And then he realized he couldn't hear anything, no birds, no wind, no sound at all, not even his own breathing. Total silence. He climbed back down fast and didn't say a word to anyone. When he got back to base that night, his trainer was waiting for him. standing there, arms crossed, with an expression like he already knew. He said, "You went up them, didn't you?" Not a question. My colleague asked how he knew. The trainer said, "Because we didn't find her. The dogs lost her scent the moment you touched those stairs." He never went near another set, and I've heard enough other stories just like that to make sure I never do either. I've run into a lot of strange things out here. Things I can half explain, and things I can't explain at all. But the faceless man, that one gets talked about in whispers. A climber we found one winter had gone up a peak solo. No reason to worry about him, experienced guy, knew the mountain. But he didn't come home when he was supposed to, so we went looking. We found him trapped in a narrow crevasse with a broken leg. He'd been there almost 2 days, not in good shape. We got him airlifted out, and on the way, barely conscious, he kept telling us what happened. He'd made it to the summit, and when he got there, there was someone else. A man, standing up there at the top of this remote peak. No climbing gear, no ropes, just a parka and ski pants, like he'd walked up from a parking lot. The climber went over to say hello. The man turned around. He didn't have a face, not injured, not masked, just smooth skin where his face should have been, blank, like the front of a mannequin that hadn't been finished yet. The climber panicked. He tried to get off the mountain too fast. That's when he fell. And here's the part that kept the climber up all night while he was stuck in that crevasse. He said he could hear the faceless man the whole time, slowly climbing down the mountain in the dark, getting closer and then moving away and then closer again, making noises, not words exactly, more like screaming but muffled, like the sound was coming through layers of something, like it was coming from a face that wasn't there. A friend of mine who works a different part of the park had his own version of that story. He was out doing some repair work at an information booth, up on a ladder, painting, when a man walked up and asked for directions to the nearest campsite. My friend didn't turn around because he was balanced up on the ladder, so he just answered, told the man there wasn't anything nearby, but a few miles down the road there was another park with camping. The man said thanks, but my friend didn't hear him walk away. He waited, called out again, asked if he needed anything else. No answer, but he could tell the man was still there somehow. The silence felt occupied. He turned around on the ladder to look. He said for just a split second. The man had no face, smooth skin, slightly concave, like a face-shaped hollow. And then something popped inside his head, and the man looked normal, regular guy, 60-something, ordinary clothes. The man asked about the campsite again. My friend pointed him in the direction. The man said he wasn't from around here. Could someone drive him? My friend said no. Company vehicle rules. The man said please, said he really didn't know where he was, said could someone just walk with him? My friend offered to call a cab. The man said no, very quietly, and walked away. Not toward the road, back into the trees. My friend got in his truck and left, and when he checked his mirror as he was pulling out, the man was standing at the tree line, watching him go, and he didn't have a face. Right before my friend rounded the corner, the man took one long step backward into the shadows and dissolved. I want to tell you about a night I've never fully been able to shake. We were searching for a 4-year-old girl who'd wandered away from her family's campsite. Hours in, no lead, deep in the dark. I was with a good buddy of mine. We were about to call it for the night and head back to the rendezvous point, when he stopped suddenly and shined his light into a thick stand of dead trees off to our right. "Listen," he said. I listened. In the distance, a child crying, a soft hitching sob, then a wail, then a quiet little hiccup. We both called out her name. No response, just the crying, continuing. We moved toward it, pushing through the deadfall, calling her name every few seconds. And as we got closer, something started feeling wrong. Not wrong like danger, wrong like something my body understood before my brain did. We stopped, called her name again, and right then, we both figured it out at exactly the same moment. The crying was on a loop, the exact same hitching sob, the exact same wail, the exact same little hiccup, repeating over and over, perfectly identical every single time, no variation, no breath between, just the same sequence, cycling, like a recording stuck on repeat. We didn't say a word to each other. We ran. It's the only time in my career I've completely lost my composure. I'm not a person who scares easy. This job doesn't leave a lot of room for that, but something about that sound, about the wrongness of it, about whatever was making it, and why. We never found that little girl. I don't let myself think too hard about what we heard that night, about what was standing there in those dead trees, making that sound, cycling through it over and over in the dark, waiting for someone to come close enough. A few years in, I got close with a senior officer, veteran of the park, 30+ years out in these woods. We'd been through some rough calls together, and one night after a particularly bad one, he opened up to me in a way I hadn't expected. He told me things that I was told never to repeat. I'm going to repeat them anyway. He said the stairs had been there as long as the parks had been parks, that their records went back decades, written descriptions of staircases found in deep wilderness, filed away and never discussed publicly. He said in the early days they used to warn new officers about them, be honest about it, let people know what they were getting into. But the turnover rate got too high. Too many people quit when they found out, so they stopped talking about it, made it policy to just ignore them, treat them like they weren't there, and people adapted. That's the thing about humans. We are remarkably good at pretending something isn't real if everyone around us is pretending too. He told me about a man who climbed a set and reached the top step and put his hand out toward a nearby tree branch. His hand was gone before he finished the motion. Clean wound, no blood trail, no hand ever recovered. He told me about a woman who touched the railing of one and immediately grabbed her own head. She made it 3 steps toward him. She said, "I think something is wrong with me," and then she dropped. He said he watched the blood move into the white of her eye, watched it slowly turn red, and there was nothing he could do, nothing anyone could do. And then he was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that has never left me. Have you ever noticed you can never find the same set twice? I had noticed. I just never let myself think about what that meant. He didn't say anything else about it, not that day, not ever. He started talking about something else, like a switch had been flipped, and the conversation moved on. I never brought it up again. And a few days later, he was gone, left before sunrise one morning, and didn't come back. None of us have heard from him since. This next story didn't happen to me directly. It came from a firefighter who got called out to assist us on a recovery. He'd been told, vaguely, that a child had been spotted high in a tree and that the SAR team needed help getting them down. He used to do tree work before joining the fire department, so they called him out specifically. He grabbed his old equipment and drove out. He was led 2 miles into the woods and pointed upward at one of the biggest trees he'd ever seen. He laughed and made a joke about cats stuck in trees. The team captain didn't laugh. He climbed. The tree was massive at the base, tapering as he went higher. At points he wasn't sure it would hold his weight, but he kept going because somewhere above him he could see a flash of blue, the color of the boy's shirt. When he got to the top, he knew before he even reached the boy that he wasn't coming down alive. The boy's body was cradled in a fork of the upper branches, no injuries visible from a distance, no blood, no sign of trauma. But when he got close, he said it was like something had used the boy like a stress ball, like some enormous pressure, applied from all directions at once, had forced everything inside him to find the nearest way out. His eyes were gone, his tongue had swollen, and his intestines had come out, all of them, draped through the branches of that tree like something decorating it. He pushed the body down with a stick. He said he couldn't make himself touch it with his hands. He almost lost his job for that. When he climbed back down, the captain was calm, professional. He thanked the firefighter for getting the evidence down. That's the word he used, the evidence. Not the boy, not the child, the evidence. When the firefighter asked what had happened, the captain said it was an open case and he couldn't discuss it. He spent the next hour trying to figure out what force in the world could have done what he saw up in that tree. without leaving a single mark on the outside of that child's body. He never figured it out, neither did anyone else. A colleague of mine, Eddie, had a girlfriend who used to go camping with him sometimes. He'd been doing the job long enough that the outdoors felt like home to him. She was fine with it, used to the sounds, used to the dark. He woke up in the middle of the night and she wasn't in the tent. He went outside and found her standing at the edge of camp, eyes open, completely still, staring into the trees. He could tell right away she was sleepwalking. He'd seen it before. He walked up to her, put his arm around her to guide her back. She wouldn't move. She said, very quietly, "I have to go now. I have to go. It's here." He told her she was dreaming, that camp was right behind her, that everything was fine. She said it again, "I have to go. It's here." And then he looked where she was looking. About 15 yards into the trees, there was a staircase, concrete, grey, standing in the dark forest, like it had always been there. He grabbed her, pulled her back hard enough to wake her up. She blinked, looked at him like he was the one who'd lost his mind, asked what she was doing outside. He told her she was sleepwalking. He didn't tell her about the stairs. He didn't tell her what she'd been walking toward. He just took her back into the tent and lay there in the dark, listening until morning came. Late one night, at a training camp out in the backcountry, one of the senior officers woke up to the sound of footsteps circling outside the tents. He thought it was a rookie who'd wandered off to use the bathroom and gotten turned around. He got up to help, grabbed his pocket flashlight, and went to the edge of camp to call out. The figure kept walking away, out into the woods. He followed. He knows now that was probably not a smart thing to do, but he was half asleep and didn't want someone getting lost on a mountainside in the dark. He followed the figure for about a mile, dead straight line, never deviating, never hesitating, until it stopped at the edge of a small river. The moonlight reflecting off the water lit the figure from behind. It looked like an ordinary person, pack on their back, standing still, facing toward him. He called out, asked if they were okay. The figure tilted its head like it didn't understand the question. He turned on his little flashlight and pointed it at the figure's chest so he wouldn't blind them. Normal jacket, normal breathing, but the breathing was wrong, too even, too deep, too deliberate. Like someone who'd been told what breathing is supposed to look like and was performing it, but had never actually done it before. He moved the light upward. The figure didn't have a face, just smooth skin, flat where the features should have been. He stumbled backward and dropped his flashlight. And in the second his eyes left the figure, it moved, without him seeing it move. One moment, it was at the riverbank. The next, it was 5 feet in front of him. He scrambled up and ran. Behind him, he heard a sound, a line opening in the thing's throat, stretching up toward where its ears would have been, pulling back like a grin, a gash smiling at him in the dark. He ran all the way back to camp. He didn't look back. He sat by the fire until sunrise. He never heard it follow him, but he felt like it was right behind him the whole way. Let me tell you about something a little different. Less scary in the way horror movies are scary. More scary in the way real life is scary. When something happens that you simply cannot file away anywhere in your head. We'd gotten a call about an older woman who'd fainted on one of the trails. Her husband was beside himself. We hiked up, got her on a backboard, and as we were bringing her down, she came around. She was fine physically, but she was scared, genuinely scared, in a way that had nothing to do with fainting. She told me what happened. She'd been waiting on the trail for her husband when she started hearing a strange sound coming from the trees. She said it sounded like a cat at first, not alarming, just odd. She walked a little ways toward it to hear it better. As it got closer, she started feeling uneasy, and then she figured out what was wrong. It wasn't a cat. It was a man saying the word meow over and over in a flat rhythmic monotone. Meow, 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 like a metronome. But the voice was wrong. It had a buzz to it, a vibration underneath the sound that she couldn't explain. She adjusted her hearing aid, thinking it was malfunctioning. It wasn't. The buzz was in the voice itself. The sound was getting closer. She still couldn't see anyone. And then a shape came out of the trees. That's the last thing she remembered before she went down. After we got her settled at base, I went back up to the area, walked around, looked for any sign of someone out there. Nothing. I was almost back to the path when I heard it, not nearby, in the distance, but clearly audible, a man's voice, saying meow over and over in that flat, buzzing monotone. I went toward it. I never got closer. No matter which direction I moved, it seemed to be coming from somewhere else, like it was all around me at the same distance, in every direction at once. Eventually it faded. I went back to base and didn't write it up. I still don't know what I heard out there, and I'm not sure I want to. I want to tell you about a veteran named Kay. She's been working mountain rescues for almost 20 years. She specializes in high elevation work, technical climbing, the kind of calls that most officers aren't trained for. She's legendary in our field and deeply uncomfortable with the praise. She told me 4 stories during a training op a while back. I'm going to share all of them. The first one she called one of her most traumatic. A family had taken themselves into a restricted area during a heavy snow year. The father decided he knew the mountain better than the warning signs did. They were snowshoeing across an area that looked solid. It wasn't. A hidden snow shelf gave way, and this family went nearly 300 feet down the slope. The parents died on impact, one of the children as well. 2 survived. One had a broken leg and fractured ribs. The other was barely injured, just bruising, a sprained ankle. That child, the almost uninjured one, left his sibling behind and set out alone through the snow to find help. He didn't make it half a mile before the weather closed in. Kay was the one who found him. She saw him from a distance as the snow was picking up, a small dark shape sitting upright in the white. She got to him as quickly as she could. He died sitting up, knees against his chest, arms wrapped around them, head tucked down inside his coat. When she moved the coat to look at his face, he died crying. His face was twisted, frozen, and the tears were still on his cheeks, crystallized, like he'd been preserved mid-grief. She said you could tell he was terrified when it happened, that the fear was still there on his face, locked in by the cold. She told me that story more than once. She said she hopes the father is somewhere very warm right now. Kay's second story came from when she was brand new, a missing experienced climber, gone a day longer than he was supposed to be. They found him under a cliff face. There was so much blood in the snow that they almost turned back before they understood what they were looking at. He'd been climbing and had taken a fall. On the way down, his ice axe had struck him. The wound was catastrophic. He'd pulled himself along the snow for what must have been an agonizing distance, leaving a trail of tissue behind him, trying to reach shelter. He made it to the cliff face, and that's where he stopped. She said she's worked a lot of terrible calls. She's not easily shaken by what she sees. But even she looked away when they turned him over to move him. Kay's third story is the one I want you to really listen to. A family was out picking berries near the park entrance. 2 little boys, both under 5. At some point during a perfectly ordinary afternoon, one of them simply vanishes. No witnesses. Dogs find nothing. No trace at all, like the child was never there. The search goes on for 2 months and ends with nothing. 6 months later, the family comes back to place flowers at a small memorial they'd made for the boy. They bring their other son. While they're placing the flowers, they look away for 3 seconds. The second boy is gone. Kay said the search that followed was one of the largest in the state's history. 300 volunteers, miles of coverage in every direction, 2 weeks of searching. They found him alive, 15 miles from where he vanished, sitting on a log, playing with a little bundle of twigs tied together with old rope. No dirt on him, clothes clean, completely untraumatized. Kay asked him where he'd been, who he was with. He said he was with the fuzzy man. She asked what he meant by fuzzy. The boy said he wasn't hairy. He was fuzzy, like when you close your eyes, but not all the way, like when everything goes blurry. He said the fuzzy man came out of the trees and took him somewhere, that he'd slept in a hollow tree and been given berries when he was hungry, that there was a clearing he was allowed to walk around in, but when he tried to go past it, the fuzzy man would get very loud. Kay asked if the fuzzy man had scared him. No, the boy said. He wasn't scary, but I didn't like how he didn't have eyes. When they pressed further, The boy said the fuzzy man had been planning to keep him, but he had to let him go, because the boy wasn't the right kind. Nobody in that room knew what to do with that. The search for the first boy was never resolved. They never found him. Kay's fourth story was about something that happened to her personally. Early in her career, during a training exercise on the mountain, she stepped away from the group for a few minutes. When she started back, she had absolutely no idea where she was, not got turned around lost. Not which way is north, lost. She said it was like someone had cleared her mind of everything. She didn't know what state she was in. She didn't know why she was on a mountain. She barely knew who she was. She picked a direction and started walking. As she walked, a voice started in her head. Low and strange, like something between a whisper and a croak, and it kept saying the same thing over and over. Find something to eat. You need to eat. Just keep walking and find something to eat. She said she'd never felt hunger like that in her life. Not hunger for anything specific, just a hollow, consuming need coming from somewhere deep and animal. She wandered for what felt to her like maybe an hour. When another officer found her, she was on the wrong side of 2 mountain peaks. She'd been gone for 2 days. She didn't remember any of it. To her, no time had passed. She said the worst part was the moment right before he reached her. She'd heard his voice and started moving toward it, and she'd found her hand on the knife at her belt. She doesn't know why. She put it away the moment she came back to herself. She said she's never gone anywhere alone out there since. Not once. Not even to use the bathroom. And if you ever give her grief about it, she just smiles and says listening to someone else pee in the snow is a small price to pay for making it back down the mountain. At a training seminar I attended, I sat down for dinner with a former officer named Earl. He'd specialized in finding missing children. He had a gift for it that nobody quite understood, a kind of instinct that got talked about in reverent tones around our field. He left the work a few years back. I understand why now. He told me about a case involving an 11-year-old boy named Marcus who disappeared near a river. Dogs led the team away from the water and up into a thick forested area. What they noticed almost immediately was a strange pattern. The boy's scent was appearing in alternating sections of their search grid. Here, then not here, then over here, then nowhere in between, like he'd been moving without touching the ground between locations. Earl and his partner entered a new section of the grid. Earl spotted a small staircase, about 50 yards out. He told his partner they should check the area near it. His partner refused, flatly, said he'd made it a rule never to go near any he found, and he wasn't changing that. Earl went alone. As he got closer, he saw something on the bottom step. Curled up, small, he already knew. The boy was lying on the bottom step in a fetal position, arms wrapped around his stomach, no visible injuries, no blood except a little at his lips and chin. He'd clearly been in tremendous pain when he died. Earl radioed in. They recovered the body. A week later, a contact in the sheriff's department called Earl. He said the coroner was baffled, that everyone in the room was baffled, that they'd never seen anything like it. When they opened the boy up, his organs had holes in them. Clean, precise, quarter-sized holes punched through his stomach, his colon, his kidneys, even one other organ, as if someone had used a hole punch on everything inside him. The edges were clean, perfect, but his skin was untouched, no entry wounds, no exit wounds, no marks of any kind on the outside. The cause of death was officially listed as internal bleeding, cause unknown. Earl said he has nightmares about it. He said he doesn't let his daughters go into the woods alone. He goes with them. He doesn't let them out of his sight. When we finished dinner, he put his hand on my shoulder and looked at me for a moment. He said, "There are bad things out here, things that don't care that we have families, that we can think and feel. Be careful." Then he walked away. I didn't get a chance to talk to him again after that night. This story came from a woman on our team, shared around a campfire one night during training. Most of the time when people tell ghost stories around a fire, you can feel the performance in it, the dramatic pauses, the practice timing. This wasn't like that. This had the sound of something she'd spent years trying to process. She grew up in northern Maine, dense national forest behind her house. the kind where the trees grow so thick together that they block out the afternoon sun entirely. She and her best friend used to explore out there constantly. They knew not to go too far, though nobody ever said why in so many words. It was just understood. There was a distance, maybe 2 miles out, past which you didn't go. One summer, a series of storms knocked down trees and set part of the deeper forest on fire. Crews came and got it under control. But she said some of those firefighters came back from that job different, shell-shocked, eyes that didn't quite focus right anymore. Most of them left town as soon as the work was done. After it was over, she and her friend decided to go see the burn area themselves. They hiked out about 2 miles, started seeing burned trees. Her friend got upset when they found the skeleton of a deer under a fallen trunk. The friend wanted to stop and do something for it, but she pulled her away. She said she didn't know exactly why. She just didn't want them near the antlers. Something about the antlers was wrong, and she couldn't say what. They pushed farther in. Eventually, no trees were standing at all, just burned ground, black and brown in every direction, like another planet. And then they heard a voice in the distance, shouting, calling for help. Her friend hid behind a rock, terrified of getting in trouble. She kept calling out, moving toward the voice, thinking it was a lost hiker. A figure came running toward her out of the burned field. As he got close, she saw his face. His nose was gone. His lips were gone, part of his forehead, cut cleanly away. He was bleeding badly, and the knees of his pants were soaked red too. He grabbed her shoulders. She said it felt like a static shock. He recoiled. He started talking. She couldn't understand most of it. He kept asking how long he'd been gone. He asked where his unit was. He looked at her Walkman and screamed. He touched his face and kept babbling. He was wearing strange clothes, a grey cloth jacket with unusual buttons and red borders on it, formal pants. Not modern, not right. She said she didn't understand why his clothes were wrong. She was just a kid. She couldn't name what was off about them. She tried to open the first aid kit. He screamed again, "Don't touch me, you'll make me go back there," and then he ran. She could hear him screaming as he disappeared back into the burned forest, getting farther, and then fainter, and then gone. When she turned around, her friend was crying behind the rock. She walked back home in silence. When her friend asked what had happened, she didn't say anything. She told her friend she didn't want to play in the woods anymore. They're still friends. She said they've never talked about that day. Not once. Not in all the years since. She doesn't know who that man was. She doesn't know where he went. She doesn't know what he meant by "make me go back there." And she has spent a long time deciding she doesn't want to. I've been doing this work for a long time now. I've heard things from colleagues and veterans that I was specifically told never to repeat. I've seen things on calls that I've never written into any official report. I've stood in the middle of a forest, 30 miles from the nearest road, and felt something watching me from a direction I couldn't identify. There are things out here that don't behave the way the world is supposed to behave. Children who vanish and reappear weeks later in places they couldn't possibly have reached. Bodies found in impossible locations without a mark on them months after they went missing. Sounds that aren't sounds, shapes that aren't people. Staircases that appear in the deepest wilderness and can never be found in the same place twice. I've been formally told to stop talking about all of it. My job has been made very clear to me, so this is the last I'll say. If you go out into the wilderness, take it seriously. Bring water, food, a map, a light. Tell someone exactly where you're going and when to expect you back. Don't leave the marked trail unless you know exactly what you're doing. Don't go farther than you planned. Don't go alone. And if you're ever deep in the woods, farther from the road than you meant to be, and you start hearing something that sounds like it's all around you at once, if you see something that has straight edges and clean lines where nothing like that should be, if something starts following you that you can't see, and the person you're with starts talking to it like it's real, trust that feeling in your gut, that animal thing that says something is wrong. Walk away. Don't run. Don't look back. And whatever you do, do not go up the stairs.